93. I'm often reminded of what Edmund Burke said. The one thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And with that, my name is Ron Moore. Let's stand for the nation. Now I'm going to ask Tom Aarons, commander of VFW Post 1681, come to give us an important meeting.
Attention. I need to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. We're going to open prayer for Frank Hanson of Post Chapel. Dear Lord, once again, we thank you for bringing us together here. And we want to thank you for John's service that he has done so well for this area here. And Lord, we don't want to forget those that gave their lives to the United States of America and the 11, and also for those in Afghanistan who have lost their lives as well. And Lord, be with us. We know that things aren't going very well, and all we can do is pray and rely on God. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Thank you, Frank. Now, I'm going to ask Amy Williams, member of Auxiliary Post 1681, to give us our Patriot Day proclamation.
Today marks the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attack, the deadliest terror attack to take place on American soil, in which thousands of Americans lost their lives in a coordinated plan to crash civilian aircraft into targets that represented our nation's strength, freedom, and resilience. And across the nation, Americans banded together in a show of strength and support for each other, our way of life, and our future, and remaining unified against those who wish to bring down our republic. And communities across the nation have transformed the anniversary of September 11th into a day of patriotism and charitable service to honor the memory of those who were lost, recognize the bravery of those who rose in service, and support those who continue to serve our country today. And we, as a country, must never forget the sacrifices of the first responders, police, firefighters, EMTs, and others, who rushed to the aid of the fellow Americans in the midst of the attacks, the men and women who joined the armed forces to protect our nation from further attacks and their families, and the veterans who today we owe an unpayable debt. Our military service members have kept our nation safe from further attack during the 20 years since September 11, 2001, with service in Afghanistan, Iraq, and across the globe. By designating September 11th as Patriot Day, the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States Congress commemorate this day each year to display the flag of the United States at half-staff, pray for our nation's citizens and leaders, remember our losses, and lift up those who protect us. I, Pete Riggins, Governor of the state of Nebraska, do hereby proclaim the 11th day of September 2021 as Patriots Day in Nebraska, and I do hereby urge all citizens to take due note of observance.
Thank you. Now I'd like Dan Kramer, immediate past VFW State Commander. He is our speaker. Let's welcome him.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As he said, I am the immediate past state commander of the Veterans Forward War. It is my honor to be here and speak on this occasion. Welcome all the dignitaries here. I'm sorry I'm terrible with names, but please don't hold that against me.
Could you get us closer to the microphone?
A little closer, okay. See, my problem is I like to wander around, John. But as we are gathered here today, I would like you to think back for just a moment or two. Where were you on September 10th, 20 years ago? A lot of folks were at home. They had supper with their families. They put their children to bed, got a good night's sleep, got up in the morning on September 11th, and they went to work, sent their kids to school, put them in daycare, whatever the case may be, having no idea that in just a few hours, almost 3,000 people would die from a terrorist attack within the confines of the lower 48 states of the United States of America. Now, folks, you may not think that most people appreciate that. And today, I'm not sure how many do. Those of us who lived through it appreciate the fact that those folks were just going about their daily business, taking care of their families, taking care of America's veterans, taking care of the people who were on active duty. Now, we can think back to just exactly the time when we heard about the 4 planes being hijacked. 2 of them hit the towers, 1 hit the Pentagon, and the people on the flight overtook the other one and put it in the ground so that they couldn't do any more damage. Those folks are heroes because they lost their lives defending the United States of America. Just the same as if they were in the military, if they were on a police force, a sheriff's office, an EMT, a fireman, they all lost lives defending our nation. Now, we can forget about those folks if we want to. I personally cannot. They've done what so many patriots have done in the past. They died for their country. They gave the ultimate sacrifice. We have a Gold Star family here. Their son gave the ultimate sacrifice. Folks, having been in the Army, I was in Vietnam. That's how I qualified for the Veterans of Foreign War. I remember people who were with me that died in Vietnam. I remember people who were with me who were wounded. And it changed their lives forever. I remember people who were there, who were in combat against the Viet Cong. It changed their lives forever. This incident on American soil that we remember today changed all of our lives forever. As far as I know, there had not been an attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. That's a long time in between attacks. And the sole reason is because of the people of the United States of America, because we stand together. When our nation calls, we stand up and say, "Send me, I will go." That's what these folks did on September 11th, 20 years ago. All of them did not take an oath to defend this country. They did it because it was the right thing to do. So we memorialize this day all of those folks, almost 3,000, who died on that day. And that's not counting the EMTs, firemen, police officers, and all that, who put in hours and hours and hours searching for people who might be alive in a rebel. That's dangerous, just as if it was the same as when the buildings tumbled, as when the Pentagon was on fire from jet fuel. Going into that field to try and find any survivors from that plane crash. They are all important people to us and to our nation. We alone bear the responsibility to memorialize those folks. We should never, ever forget what happened on that day. And the reason that so many of our soldiers died in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have a long, long tradition in this country of standing up and saying, "I will defend my nation. Send me, I will go." Now, folks, I want you to understand that I am nobody. I'm just an old cowboy from the sand hills over at Stapleton, Nebraska. I'm plain spoken. I'm probably not politically correct. But I say what's on my mind, and I mean what I say. And I follow through with what I say, just like the rest of you in this room today. So with that, I will leave you with this. Memorialize these folks. Stand up and say, I will not forget. And always, always stand together, united in the one cause of the freedom of this United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Now we have a patriotic song. Andrea's with Auxiliary 1681.
And the program has me reading the patriotic poem. I chose the names by Billy Collins. have slowly forgotten, I'm going to take you back to the day and remember the names. Yesterday, I lay awake in the calm of the night. A soft rain stole in, unhelped by any breeze. And when I saw the silver glaze on the windows, I started with A, with Ackerman as it happened, and Baxter and Calabro, Davis and Everling, names falling into place. As droplets fell through the dark, names printed on the ceiling of the night, names slipping around a watery bend, 26 willows on the banks of a stream. In the morning, I walked out barefoot among thousands of flowers, heavy with dew like the eyes of tears, and each had a name. Viore inscribed on the yellow petal, then Gonzalez and Hahn, Ishikawa and Jenkins, names written in the air and stitched into the cloth of the day. A name under a photograph taped to a mailbox, monogram on a torn shirt. I see you spelled out on storefront windows and on the bright unfurling awnings in this city. I say the syllables as I turn a corner: Kelly, Lee, Medina, Nardella, and O'Connor. When I peer into the woods, I see a thick tangle where letters are hidden, as in a puzzle concocted for children. Parker and Quigley in the twigs of an ash. Rizzo, Schubert, Torres, and Upton. Secrets in the bows of an ancient maple. Names written in the pale sky. Names rising in the updraft of mid buildings. Names silent as stone, or cried out behind a door. Names blown over the earth and out to sea. In the evening, weakening light, the last swallows. A boy on a lake lifts his oars. A woman by a window puts a match to a candle, and the names are outlined on the rose clouds. Vanderpoor and Wallace. Let X stand if it can for the ones that were never found. Then Young and Zeminski, the final jolt at sea. Names etched on the head of a pin. One name spanning a bridge, another undergoing a tunnel. A blue name needled into the skin. Names of citizens, workers, mothers and fathers, bright-eyed daughter and quick son. Alphabet of names on a green field. Names in the small tracks of birds. Names lifted from a hat or balanced on the tip of a tongue. Names wheeled into the dim warehouse of memory. So many names, there's barely room on the walls of the heart.
Thank you, Andrea.
Now we're going to have some remarks on importance of Patriot Day. We have Matt Myers, First Sergeant, U.S. Army, retired.
Patriot Day is a day to commemorate the lives of those who died on this day 20 years ago. When terrorists attacked the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and United Airlines Flight 93. This day is also to honor the first responders who died attempting to rescue those trapped after these attacks. I believe all of us know where we were when these tragedies occurred. For me, I was a young sergeant in the United States Army stationed in Germany with my wife and son. I was walking into our pilot's briefing room to retrieve a couple of pilots for a maintenance test flight. And when I opened the door, all eyes were on a single TV in the room. No one was speaking. As I looked up at the TV, the first aircraft was crashing into the World Trade Center. Shortly after, the second hit. And then the Pentagon and news of United Airlines Flight 93. As a career soldier, I knew that day would have a direct impact on my remaining 17 years of service. 9 days later, President Bush announced the war on terror. In a speech to Congress and the nation, we reversed the direction of travel of the U.S. flags on our uniforms to reflect the fact that the flags being carried into battle. Our country was now at war. Since 9/11, I've served in 10 combat deployments, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. Serving alongside brave men and women seeking some sort of retribution for this terrorist act, willing to sacrifice their own lives to ensure the freedom and safety of our great country. Please take time today and remember all of those lost in this attack. Thank the first responder for running towards what most are running away from. Remember our fallen service members that gave everything to fight this war on terror, helping to ensure our country's safety. Finally, remember and pray for all the families that have lost a loved one during this tragic event. They will always have a void that can never be filled.
Now I'm going to ask Steve Jordan, Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freedom, DAV Chapter 10.
Well, good morning. What an honor to speak on this 20th anniversary of 9/11. It's nice to see our past state VFW commander here. I've never met him before, but somehow I think we're related because I'm not politically correct, and I say what I mean. And it's very nice to see our local first responders here as well, firefighters, police, as well as all the other attendees, especially Chris Bob Wolf. As I said, I'm Steve Jordan. I'm a retired soldier. I was in Washington, D.C. on 9/11 at work, trying to understand what was going on at the Twin Towers up in New York when the Pentagon was attacked about 2 miles from where I was at. So I heard the explosion. I saw the flames, the black fumes in the air. And I was driving home a couple hours later on 995, which is normally a packed parking lot that time of day. It in D.C. was nothing but a ghost town. There were no phone communications or whatever at the time, so I was heading home to let my children know I was okay. And I still remember seeing the firefighters trying to put out the flames, people pulling bodies out of the plane or out of the Pentagon, laying them on the east side of the Pentagon grass. And I was just devastated. And then 2 years later, on September 20th, 2003, I was in Iraq. I wounded with 14 other soldiers during an insurgent mortar attack. We also lost 2 young soldiers that day. Specialist Brown, Sergeant Kramer. I carry their loss of life with me yet today. In 9/11, the first responders did their mission without hesitation. As First Sergeant Meyer said, they ran to the threat. They didn't run from the threat. Paramedics were there as well. They hit the stairs as others were fleeing. There's no discussion over political affiliations or race or religious preferences. They just went to do their job together. These heroes went to save fellow Americans, period. Many that survived are still passing away due to disease-related issues from that fateful day. All true heroes. We also have the civilian heroes on the flight over Pennsylvania. They took that plane down as they knew that their lives were over. And they fought on. They didn't let fear overtake them. They saved many other American lives, whether that plane was intended for Congress or that plane was intended for the White House. So whether it's the Boston Tea Party, the Alamo, Pearl Harbor, or 9/11, Americans are able to put aside differences and rally to the call of freedom. On this unique anniversary day, we gather to remember all those heroes from 9/11. Unfortunately, we have an administration in the White House that has no honor, no respect for our military members. What a shame that Joe Biden is speaking today on 9/11 about these past heroes. He has no moral integrity nor honor, nor does he value our military members. Joe Biden ran the withdrawal from Iraq. And a shocker that administration screwed it up. We left equipment, we left locals that fought with us, and we left a void that created ISIS. Let's not forget that. That ISIS void became because of how we left that situation. So when I saw the young faces of those 11 Marines, that Navy corpsman, that Army soldier that recently passed at the Kabul airport doing their job, I cried. They look so young, and remind me of my two sons, remind me of Brown and Frederick, the old son who passed. And Afghanistan under Joe Biden is going to be the greatest intelligence failure, more so ever than Pearl Harbor was. And if you recall, the terrorists of 9/11 were admitted legally into the United States. Many of them overstayed, many went to flight schools to learn how to fly planes and attack the United States. And I hope I'm wrong, but with at least 60,000 Afghan refugees here now, we now have war coming. I foresee future attacks on soft targets on American soil. And it won't be today, it may not even be next year, but it's likely to come because there's a void that's been left, and we've turned our back on the Afghan people. Fundamentalist Muslims have the saying, Americans have the clock, but we have the time. So as Americans, let's stay united, not divided, and remain ever vigilant. Thank you.
Chris is not here yet.
Yep, he's here.
Okay. Chris is Locke. Thank God. Chris Wolf, Gold Star. Parents.
You go first. You go first.
My name is Bob Wolf, I'm Chris's husband. We are the parents of Specialist James Wolf, who was killed in Iraq on November 6, 2003. I am on the foundation board for the State Veterans Cemetery in Alliance. And so as part of that board, we now have 365 interments in our veterans cemetery up there. And one thing that was told to me that I think comes back today is very, very important. The first director of the cemetery up there, Alan Purnell, told us one time, he said, you died twice. The first time you die is when your soul leaves your body. He said the second time that you die is the last time someone mentions your name. It is our responsibility throughout the year, but especially on days like this, to remember those names so that they don't die a second time. That's so very, very important. So I'll let Chris talk now.
There's been a lot of wonderful speeches today, a lot of good words, a lot of true words, a lot of emotions. When John asked us to speak, he just wanted what we thought about the 9/11, and it was a horrific situation that happened. But I think that what it did was it awakened the American public to the freedoms that we have. To know that I, as a woman, or my daughters, can go out, have a career, have a life, have children, and not have to fear just because of their sex what's going to happen to them. It brought out the patriotism, the appreciation for our military. I didn't know this until just recently, but Jimmy had called us when he was He was stationed in South Korea at the time of 9/11, and he called us. And those phone calls were very precious because we got very, very few. It was a day of instant messenger, and we could talk to him in the evenings. But to have an actual phone conversation was very rare. And he called just to make sure that we're okay, the fight's up. But I didn't know that he already knew we were going to war. And he never backed down a minute. He was there to do a job, and he was going to do it. And that makes me very proud of him. And every one of you that have served, and those that will serve in the future. This crisis awakened people to say, it's time for me to stand up and serve. So I'm very grateful for that. There's a priest that I follow on Facebook. Okay, I'm a Facebook person, I admit. But Father Jim Sisko, and he's a missionary. And he has wonderful things to say, both funny, but also very meaningful. And I hope I can say this right. His post today was, the way to honor 9/11 is to remember what we were on 9/12. Thank you.
Yeah, what a solemn and sacred day, largely because we refused to forgive. When John called me and asked me to speak, I thought to myself, what the heck am I going to tell VFW and John Brennan about patriotism or great patriots? And I'm just humbled and honored to be here. So what I settled on was to tell you my thoughts and my experiences. On Tuesday morning, September 11th, 2001, I was at home. I was sitting in my living room. I was watching the news. I was working a 3 to 11 shift for Scottsbluff PD. I was a patrolman at the time. The kids were off to school. The wife was getting ready for work, and I was watching one of the towers on fire. And on the news, they were trying to make sense of what was happening. There was a lot of speculation at the time. And then the second light hit. And you immediately knew. Fire department in New York, ladder 118 was crossing the Brooklyn Bridge for the last time. It was a time of great patriotism. After or during this whole time, first responders, fire department, law enforcement rushed to the scene to save Americans. 72 law enforcement lost their lives, many firemen, many civilians. The total was around the 3,000 mark. I didn't bring the numbers because I thought I would just be repeating what somebody else said. So I had many friends in law enforcement that resigned and joined the military or re-enlisted into the military. There's many stories like that. Pat Tillman gave up his NFL career and was later killed in 2004 in Afghanistan. So it was a very unifying experienced. 9/11 was a time when Americans came together. There was allegiance. We were indivisible. We were one nation under God, e pluribus unum, one out of many. Terrorists met rural America. And whenever I speak, I always talk about how blessed we are to be in western Nebraska, rural America, and we truly are, and largely because of you and the things you've done for our country. So, thank you. Thank you for doing that. There are many events going on across the country today, and for that we're thankful. Fire department had an event at High Rocks this morning. This event here. In 2011, about this time of year, I had the honor to attend the FBI National Academy, and there were 260 students at the Academy from all over the United States, 26 international, and had the opportunity to meet a lot of law enforcement from the New York area, and a lot of them had very remarkable stories about sifting through the rubble. And you can tell that they were very proud of their service. It is also worthy to note that there's been 300 deaths since 9/11 for 9/11 health-related issues. So those folks need to be remembered as well. So it was a proud time to be an American, and it still is for me. I think most first responders and most rural America is proud to be an American. A few years ago, my kids bought me one of the DNA kits where you send in and find out where you came from. And in case you're interested, I'm largely English and Irish, which accounts for some of the temper, or explains it at least. But I got those results, and I'm looking at those results, and I thought, does it really matter? On that day, I decided that it didn't, and that I am an American, and that is where I'm from. The history and the heritage is interesting and it's nice, but we are Americans. That's what we are. So, in closing, I just want to remind everybody how blessed we are to be in rural America. We have a lot to be thankful for, specifically in western Nebraska. I'll tell you just a brief little story. When I was 18 years old, I didn't like this area much. I grew up in Gary, and I wanted to get out of it. And it was just a young man's mind. I didn't know better. I didn't. So I moved to Cody, Wyoming, and I was there for 7 years. I worked in the oil field. I worked on ranches. I thought cowboying would be cool. Turns out it didn't pay much. It was hard to support a family, so I got into the oil field. And I was working in the oil field. And in the mid-'80s, if you remember, the bottom fell out of the oil market. It got tough to make a living in the oil field too, so I decided to go back to college. And in doing that, I joined the National Guard in Cody. I was a cannon crewman in Wyoming, and from there I moved to a place called Great Bend, Kansas, to go back to college. And I became a 13-round field artillery radar in the Kansas unit, and I remained there for 8 years. I served for 9. And went to college, got an associate degree in police force in Great Bend and worked there for 9 years. And for the last, I was in Great Bend for 12 years, and probably for the last 3, I was trying to find a way back here. I realized that this is where I wanted to be. This is where my family was from, a lot of my friends, and the people that I enjoy. So I tried to get back here. I became the chief of Morrow. I really didn't enjoy the small town law enforcement that much. There just wasn't a lot of activity. And so I applied for and became a Scottsbluff police officer and fell in love with patrol all over again. It's a great department. It's a very busy department. I've been the chief for, I'm going on my 9th year. Never thought I'd be a chief, but very, very proud of the police department. We have a great group of men and women that work very hard to keep the community safe, and I think they're very successful in doing that. We don't, no matter what you read in the paper, we don't have a lot of violent crime out here. We do have safe communities. So, and I hope that's the feeling that you have as well. But again, in closing, we are blessed to be Americans. We are blessed to be Americans in rural America, specifically Western Nebraska. And thank you for what you've done for our country. God bless our service members, our first responders, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have a representative from the fire department? John Brain III, do you want to say something? Uh-oh, I'm going to give John the mic.
Dangerous. I think these guys are famous. Give me the mic. Good morning. I'm with the VFW Auxiliary, State of Nebraska District 1. Basically what I wanted to talk about today a little bit was to honor first responders, first and foremost. He said we do live in a safe community, we do. The few interactions I've had with police, thank God. Somebody broke into my house. If somebody's in there, do I go to my DeWalt Wonder Bar? Do I call these guys and have them clear the house? You know, they go in no matter what. They're there. Fire department, the truck's on fire. Best sound I ever heard was that siren screaming down the street to come save the truck and me. But and then of course the military for taking the fight to them after 9/11. The thing I remember most about 9/11 was I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing. I was watching the news. I seen they were at the time speculating a small aircraft hit the Tower 1. And my wife was getting ready to go to work. She was working in Gary at the time. And then when it was discovered that I was watching when the plane hit Tower 2, and shortly thereafter I got a phone call from somebody who most of you know. And he says, you know what, John? He's about 57 at the time. He goes, you tell Mom I'm re-upping. I'm going to go get her. He knew. That was my dad. So you might have to pass a physical to get back in, but go for it. You know, what the heck, you know? But that's Dad. He's gung-ho, and I want to tell you some of the other stuff he said, but it was between us. But I think I got a Facebook post, Andrea Myers, and it said the best thing out of 9/11 was 9/12. Because 9/12, the stores ran out of flags. Everybody went and got an American flag to fly. We were one nation. None of this left, none of this right, none of this defund the police, none of this, any of this other stuff. There's so much more important things going on in the world. Are we more in danger now because of Afghanistan? I don't know. I'm not a geopolitical expert. I have my opinions. But now is the time that we need to come together as one nation. Never. I always heard people say, well, you know, Pearl Harbor was horrible. But I never experienced how horrible it really was till 9/11. And I watched it unfold during my time. And I completely understand what Pearl Harbor was to some. But I leave you with, united we stand, divided we fall. Thank you.
I'm going to break protocols, Master Ceremony tonight. I was in Reagan International Airport September 10th. And there was a Muslim mother and father and baby getting ready to get on my plane to go to Riyadh. And I said to myself, our nation is growing. The next day, I'm seeing all this terror happening on 9/11. And I remember driving back from Reno with no jet streams in the air. It was also my grandson's birthday today. He turns 15. I will remember this day in many ways. Let's stand for a patriotic song.
For
With that, I'm going to ask Frank Kinsey for a closing prayer.
I'd like to say just a few words in regards to everything that has been said. And you know, when I went into the military, I signed a piece of paper that said I would freely give my life for my country for X number of years. And every one of us did too. Now, those that are in the police department, fire department, first responders, and this sort of stuff, never signed such a paper that they were going to do. It was all voluntarily. And then there's also those that in the time of crisis help instead of complain. And Lord, you know, we've kind of forgotten all of this and what this country was started on, and that's your word. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for our forefathers that said they were going to make this country a good country for you because of the tyranny and the fight that they had prior to. Lord, now they have kind of forgotten all of that. And Lord, there's only one thing that will bring this country back, and that's to you. And we can only do that through individuals who give their life to you. And Lord, bless each and every person that's here. They're here because they wanted to, not because they had to. And Lord, give them an extra blessing and give them safety for when home. We ask it in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for coming. Any announcements for anybody else?